Welcome to the Cleaning Up Business Podcast. My name's Chris Guilfoyle and I'm going to be your host. In every episode, we're hoping to bring you industry leaders from a wide variety of service sectors, disruptors within their industry, and day-to-day entrepreneurs with some business and life lessons for you guys to take away. Let's jump in to today's episode.
If you do stuff and go places, things happen. He was just about to go and do a big speech and he looked over and said to me, "Mate, this will be you soon. This will be you one day." Even the smallest things that I could have done would have made a big difference to them.
Give me an example.
Just appreciating their work. Be honest about your weaknesses and address them and find a way to get those seen to.
There's definitely plenty of money left on the table.
The feeling of imposter syndrome was off the scale. The lowest point was a culture thing. We got too big, just became a little bit toxic.
Let's talk a little bit about work-life balance.
There comes a point where you do say, well, what's the cost?
Welcome back to another episode of the Cleaning Up Business Podcast. I've got another fantastic guest for me today. I have owner and director of Source Janitorial Services, Ollie Rastall. Ollie, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, same format as always, Ollie. We talk about fantastic stories, entrepreneurial stories. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I'm Ollie. I grew up in Hampshire and had a pretty fun childhood, to be honest. I mean, I loved school, but wasn't particularly good at it. I just found myself mainly drawn towards sport, really. And that was the main thing. And I had the dreams of being, in football, as we all do, kind of growing up. And I did a little bit of that, to be honest. I did get kind of close, but not close enough.
How close?
We've all got to semi-pro, haven't we? The old cliche semi-pro. But yeah, it was good. I mean, I got into. I started at Farnborough Town in the conference, and then kind of went down from there.
That's good.
Yeah, it was all downhill from there. But I was a keeper, so I was just too small.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely never going to make it in my height. But yeah, that was the kind of the direction I wanted to go. But then through kind of school and college, academics was never really for me. So I kind of really knew that I had to figure my own way out. And even from an early age, there was a kind of an itch that needed to be scratched when it came to making money or making my own money rather than kind of being employed. There was, you always look for the opportunity, don't you, really? And it never really came to much, but I think there was a little fire that was burning away. Left school with, bang average kind of results, and that never really took me anywhere. Played football for a while and got some money for that. And then I went to university and did a couple of years at Southampton, and it got me my coaching licenses in football. So got my UEFA B and my FA coaching badges, and then that took me out to the States.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I moved out for a whole summer and basically moved around just teaching kids how to play football and also coaching adults how to coach.
Is it substantially different? I imagine going out to the States and, sports is always a fantastic crossover to business. I think there's a lot of parity between the two. What was it like out in the States when it come to football, soccer, as they call it in the States? Weird. Was it substantially different how it goes?
It's more of a business, actually. Here we just kind of play and you pay your £2.
It's a passion, right?
Yeah, and you pay your £2 subs as a kid. Over there, it's it's a proper kind of paid coaches, and hence why I was there. They take it a lot more seriously. Much higher gender equality in terms of the uptake of soccer. I was probably coaching more girls than I was boys. Yeah. This is back in kind of early 2000s. Anyway, so a 12-week kind of stint out there ended up being, I did a second summer out there and I didn't come home. They offered me a job, and so at 20 years old, I essentially moved to the States and was there nearly 2.5 years.
On your own?
Yeah.
That's some jump at 20
years.
Years.
It was. I think where I grew up in Winchester in Hampshire, it's one of those towns where everyone knows everyone.
Sure.
Brilliant for that. I mean, social life was absolutely off the charts. But I felt like I needed to see the world, and some of my mates went travelling, and I decided to go and work abroad and just see where it took me, really.
Yeah.
So that was a big, I mean, that is, the cliche university of life, when you're living abroad and you're fending for yourself, and you're finding your own way really, and doing that in a different country. I think it's a really, really valuable experience. Yeah. Really valuable experience.
University, just quickly jumping back to that, that's a big one. When people mention on the show about going to university, did you, 'cause Adam behind the camera, he's been to university. Did you find value in that? Is that a good ROI, going to university?
I'll tell you honestly, so I did a 2-year course, and I was only really there because I was getting paid to play football, but it wasn't a full-time pro contract. It was just kind of, as I said, semi-pro. And so I needed to do something. Yeah. I didn't even have the grades to make the course, but because I was playing football at a decent level, they kind of let me in through the back door. Yeah. And so, so I did 2 years. It wasn't a degree course. It was an HND in sport and leisure management with the coaching badges entwined into the course. So it was a means to an end, really. I wasn't kind of going there looking to get a degree and then use a degree as a career. Sure. I was kind of there just as a kind of a complement to what I was doing on the pitch, really. And it worked out, actually, because without that university course, I definitely wouldn't have got the opportunity in the States. So for me, big return on investment, because the money we paid towards the fees got me my badges, got me some knowledge with kind of biomechanics, etc., and all the other bits you touch on in that course, and then also gave me some coaching skills. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of I see both kind of arguments for education, because I don't really feel like I went to uni. I feel like I went and just learned how to coach. Yeah.
And play football.
Yeah, and I didn't come out with a degree, so I don't feel like I've kind of used. I've been down that road, but it's a really tricky subject because it's so expensive these days. Yeah, and I'm a big advocate of entrepreneurship and finding your own way through business. And I often go and speak in schools, and they wheel me out to the kids who have kind of lost their motivation for education. I'm a huge fan of, a believer of, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Because I wasn't ready to learn about history at 14, 15 years old. I had no interest. I was elsewhere.
14, 15-year-old, especially men, they don't have an interest in that, really, do they?
But wind the clock forward 10 years, I was like a sponge. Something clicked in me. And all of a sudden I was like a World War II nerd, and I was just kind of going out to World War I fields in Belgium, and, going to gravestones and all sorts. And I'm thinking 10 years ago, when my history teacher was trying to tell me about this, I was, time's break, going to play football in 5 minutes. So I think education is such a personal journey, and it's so difficult to fit it into the right pocket of time for each person. Yeah. We're told to go to school at this age, go to uni at this age, learn about this, pass a certain level of exams, and we all mature at different stages.
I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, I was probably the same. I'm probably identical to you at school.
We look identical today, mate.
Yeah, I know. we didn't colour coordinate. I didn't know I was wearing. I had the same. I think I had the potential to be there, but just, wrong time, just messed about with my mates. As I got older, I was more worried about going out the weekend with my friends rather than, necessarily doing well and focusing at work. But it got to when I got to a certain age, I think I always had that ability, but never really carried it through. And that's just the naivety of being young, I would say. But probably like yourself, especially when, you start your own business and you start that entrepreneur journey, personal development, we mentioned about content. That's something that we have a lot in common. You're thirsty for more. You're looking at YouTube videos all the time. So it's like you say, it's just 14, 15-year-old boys. They're not interested in that type of thing, are they? Like you say, you were more interested in playing football than, maybe listening to a teacher. And I was exactly the same. But now it's probably the reverse. So you was out in the States. How did that go?
Really well, actually. Yeah, I made some lifelong friendships out there, and I'm still in touch with a few families out there today. It's a great experience. I'm a huge advocate of just travel, cultures, just experiencing how people do things differently, and learning very quickly and as early as possible that different isn't wrong. It's just a different way of doing things. And I think I'd encourage anyone who's young to broaden their horizons by going, and seeing the world. And if you can, experience it from from an employment perspective as well. So there is out there kind of 18 months, 2 years, give or take, and then came back to Winchester, and it felt even smaller. It felt kind of, provincial, and I needed to kind of spread my wings again. So I think I lasted another 6 months there and moved up to London. And then my mate had a flat in Canary Wharf, and
lovely.
Yeah, it was just opposite the Dome. Actually, it was one of the first high-rise builds, and way before the majority of the developments there at the moment. But yeah, that was in 2004, 2005, and I ended up being there for 10 years, give or take. Yeah.
Stay in sports? Did you?
No, so I had no idea what I was going to do, but I thought, well, I've got a bit of a coaching resume here to lean into, and so I went straight into personal training. Okay. So I went into personal training in Canary Wharf, and through PT you meet a lot of people. Yeah, you meet some really interesting people, and you never know who's watching. I learned that very quickly because it was quite a high-end gym, and so by default you're going to get some people of influence there,
especially in an area like Canary Wharf.
Exactly, you're going to get, and I was presented with so many opportunities, so many, and I took a few, I passed a few off, and but again, if anyone young is watching this, like, if you do stuff and go places, things happen. If you meet people, opportunities do present themselves, and that's why I just feel like there is a lot of value in getting out there and just trying lots of different things. Yeah. So I was trying. I got my personal training exams before I came up to London, and ended up there for a while. But that's where I first butted heads with management, and really hit home to me that I probably wasn't designed to be employed.
Yeah, not a PAYE employee.
Exactly. So then the cogs were turning already about, well, how do I make this my own thing? Yep. So naturally, you're thinking, well, I can take my clients outside and earn a living through personal training on the side, and hopefully get that to a point where it's full time. So I did that, but I didn't leave. I did what most business owners should do, really, is kind of test the water before you jump the ship. And it was hard. I was cycling all over London. Peak times is when people want to train, right? Because they're at work. Yeah. So, I'd be busy from like 6 till 8 in the morning, like a big chunk of the day missing, and then I'd be busy in the evening. So it's kind of didn't really work. And I was trying to work in the day as well. So I could probably chalk that up as the first failed business, but it never really was a business per se. It was an attempt to test the water.
Did it make you realise there, you said a great point, and I've done the same as you. It's uber fashionable to be an entrepreneur and sort of, give up everything and chase your dreams. The reality of that, it's not as simple as just cutting ties with your job maybe and going all in on business. The sentiment's nice, but I think the reality is a lot different when you can't afford to put food on the table and things like that. And I had the same approach as you. I was employed and started my business on the side, doing it out of hours and sort of, doing it gradually rather than going all in, as everyone likes to say it, and doing it out of the way. And I think, do you think that's a better approach for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I definitely do. I do. I also am a big believer of that, contradicting myself in there's never a right time. So you might be kind of bubbling away in the background thinking, oh, it's not quite where I need it. I do think there's a point in time where you need to break and say, I'm going to go in, leap of faith. Yep, and you're going to have a couple of steps backwards. It's going to be a rocky start. But then it needs your full attention. Yep. Otherwise, you're never really going to make that kind of transition into kind of a full-time business person, So, going back to kind of Canary Wharf, I met a really interesting guy. I was training him for a long time, 3 or 4 times a week, which is quite a busy schedule for a PT for one person. Sure. And lo and behold, he was a really influential person. I'll just leave it at that. And
I love stories like that.
And for months I didn't know who he was, because he's not well known as such, but he's extremely influential. And he just said to me, you can't do this all your life. What are you going to do next? And he would always be probing, asking those questions. And I'd be just like, well, let's do this. Yeah. Not really thinking that far ahead. But his mind was like, he obviously saw something. And that's what I meant when someone's watching. Someone's always watching you. Yeah. And, that's where you got to really kind of appreciate that and try and give your best version of yourself. anyway, so he gave me an opportunity because he owned a lot of properties all over London and real estate across the whole world, basically. And he said, look, why don't you try this? And it was way before the hand car wash scene was an actual thing. It was before, unfortunately, I think it's a pretty, how do I say it, a pretty nefarious industry, isn't it? Yeah. There's a lot of human rights, in my opinion, associated to those places. So I won't go too deep into that. But he said to me, look, I own a load of land in Southend.
Yeah.
Why don't you go down there and put hand car wash on? You've got a whole building full of potential customers. Why don't you go and I'll give you the place for free.
Yeah.
Start your own business, mate.
Wow.
I won't ask for a cut. I just believe in you. You need to go and do your own thing. So I quit my job, quit the gym.
You went all in on this.
I went in, and it gave me great satisfaction, actually, because the management who I was working for was a classic example where time served just doesn't justify climbing the ladder into a managerial position. Mm-hmm. The skill set that she had was just not cut out. Yeah. It was not for that role. She was a great PT, but she wasn't a good man manager. But she had just been promoted into that position just by dint of being there for a long time. Based
on, hours you've been there, years you've been there.
And me and her just clashed. And so I was like, see you later, I'm off. I'm going to go and wash cars. Yeah. And she was probably thinking, all the best.
Good luck with that, my friend.
Yeah. So I'd be bombing down the A13 every day to Southend from East London, and 7 days a week on my own, grafting. Yeah. I had no idea.
Physically on the tools.
No one else, just me. Oh, wow. I drove down there, my little Peugeot 306, and, just was 40 miles there, 40 miles back. Sometimes I'd be sat there doing nothing because it was, bad weather. And then gradually people got to know me. I got some signs done by some guy who absolutely took me to the cleaners in hindsight. He saw me come in. I was like, got any signs? And he did these custom signs, and I had no money. So I gave him a credit card. It cost about 400 quid for this little plastic sign saying car wash down here. Absolutely done me, but I had a big lesson there. I had no capital. Just basically put all of my startup costs on credit. Just was absolutely wet behind the ears, but it was some really valuable experiences. Definitely. So I did the whole summer. I didn't see any of my mates. It was just kind of 7 days a week. If it looked out the window, I'd be like, I'm not going to earn any money today because it's chucking down with rain. But then the football season started as well at the tail end. And so I started getting all the football traffic from Roots Hall. And so they would come in, drop their car off, get a full valet and want it back. Yeah. So I was thinking, well, how can I scale this up? There's only one of me.
Yeah, you can only do so much, right? When you're
exactly. So then there's another lesson about scalability and kind of it was probably a 6-month thing, maximum. But I mean, did I learn some lessons there? Absolutely. And that's what John wanted me to do. He wanted me to be exposed and learn some hard lessons and think.
And sometimes you only learn them lessons by being in the trenches, right?
Totally.
Even like now, I've mentioned this before, I don't know, some of our content, we've got a sister company, which is a drainage company, and that's still in its early days. When I started JCD, probably like yourself, it's reliant on you, because you haven't got the capital to go and, get a management team in, get operational staff in. So you've got to do it. And we had an employee doing some of our drainage stuff. They left. So at the moment, there's days where I have to flitter between the two and actually go out on the tools and do that. And you have to do, I think that's the best way to learn an industry. And I'm so pleased that I learned our industry from the ground up rather than jumping in at different levels. As you say, you learn some fantastic lessons there.
I really did. And it's also about processes, because this one guy, he came down from the building at lunchtime just to see his car that I'd cleaned. He couldn't believe it. He was like, this is almost like detailed. What have you been doing? Yeah. I just didn't really know. I was just trying to do it as best as I possibly could. Yeah. And if there was any processes in place, I'd be like, right, I spend that amount of time on this, and this is the process of cleaning a car from, outside in or top to bottom, whatever it was. So just lessons everywhere. And a lot of them I didn't realize I was learning. It's only when I look back and think, wow, that was invaluable. Anyway, cut a long story short, it failed because it comes in the winter time, it just was miserable. I was getting completely depressed about it. So I went back into the world of personal training, this time in an investment bank at Bank of America. So there's a company which at the time had the contract to run the banks within run the gyms within the banks. Yep. So pretty much every tower in Canary Wharf has got its own floor dedicated for a gym.
I've worked in the Bank of America, so
and 5 Cabot Square, I think it was.
Yeah. And Credit Suisse, who on the corner, they had a massive gym in there, literally a full-size commercial gym.
Yeah, I used to work in there as well. I used to do a bit of cover in there. Again, loved it. Sport was my thing. It came easy to me. You know, I loved coaching. Used to teach spin classes. Used to teach boxercise. Used to do all that sort of stuff. And again, met some great people who I'm still in touch with today. But also, again, the eyes are on me. Yeah. People are watching me. And again, opportunities. So the head of the foreign exchange desk said, "Can't do this all your life. What are you going to do?"
Reoccurring theme about PTs.
Yeah. There's like a breeding around recruitment. Yeah. And so I started going up onto the trading floor, learning how to trade currencies. Yeah. So I'd go up in my gym kit, and all the people I'd be teaching on like a class at lunchtime were like, because my shift would be like 6 a.m. till 3 p.m, and so I'd go straight up from first floor up to the trading floor at 3 until 5 until the market's closed. Yeah. And everyone was like, "What the hell's he doing?" And then after a while, it just became normal. Yeah. People were like, "All right, mate." But believe me, I haven't got a clue about numbers. And I'd say to this guy, Martin, I'd be like, "Mate, I haven't even got maths GCSE. You know, I'm going to get found out here." Yeah. He was like, "Just go with it." You know, he was proper Barrow boys off the train from Essex, old school traders.
Wolf of Wall Street stuff.
Yeah. And they were like, "Just go with it. Just go with it." And I was sat next to a kid who was, had an economics master's degree, and there's me without a maths GCSE. And he was like, believe me, you can do this. So I did all my exams, and that took me a while because, again, it's just like reading and learning stuff, parrot fashion, the FSA exams, and bored me to tears. And I knew in my heart of hearts, it wasn't for me. It sat at a desk, intense kind of environment in an office. I wanted to be free. Yeah. So I got a job offer, which was double my salary, starting salary, and this is bonus culture as well. Early 2000s, mid 2005, 2006 maybe. And I was like, I'm flattered. I've done my exams, but do you know what? Something in my gut is telling me I'm nowhere near this job, and I don't want to be. Yeah. So I said thanks, but no thanks, and they were cool. But I knew there was something bubbling away. I knew that being a PT or even running a gym just wasn't what I was going to do. I never knew what I was going to do, but I just knew, again, it was another sign that you've got something about you, but it's not in this, And again, throughout my 20s, never really knew what I wanted to do, but I was just trying a bit of everything, meeting people.
That's how you find out, isn't it? Really, totally. I think again, there's a lot. This is the first time me and Ollie have met today, face to face, and I think there's a lot of synergies there. I was the same. I was very fortunate enough that I was mentored by people that were, very well respected in their relative industry, and just given opportunities. But that's where I think personality plays a lot into things, likability, and like you say, you never know who you're working with or who's watching. So that's why you've always got to try and put your best foot forward, right?
Totally agree. And also, you do the same, Chris. I think what happens is people see themselves in you.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
And I think that's quite a powerful connection. Mm. And I feel like, looking back over my kind of earlier years, I feel like the people that I really clicked with, they would probably say that I saw myself in you. And there's probably 3 or 4 examples of that I can absolutely cast iron give you on that. And I think, when you speak to the next Chris, you see him a mile off and you're like, I'm going to mentor that person. I'm going to, reach out to them and make sure that they feel how I felt when I was kind of given opportunities. And so, I met some, I'm a Villa fan. And when I was in London, we had a really close group of guys who were all older than me in established careers and stuff. And I went to work for one of them because I was out of work, and he just said, "I'll come and work for me. I'll set up a company within my existing business, and you can do that in recruitment." So I did that. Again, pretty kind of stifling job in terms of someone who's born to be kind of a bit more free. But it was great because I got another insight into how businesses run, and I got friendly with a chap called Darren, who was the business owner, and he had a big company employing hundreds of people, and he had a 15-year celebration dinner at the Grove and invited me there. And he was just about to go and do a big speech, and I'll always remember this because we were in the gents together having a whiz, and he looked over and said to me, "Mate, this will be you soon. This will be you one day." And when someone gives you that confidence, a vote of confidence where you don't expect it, I think it really plants a seed.
Especially from someone that's established.
Yeah, someone you respect, someone you've established. And I feel like that's all. Sometimes I think the power of words and what people say is sometimes not really appreciated to this, its full meaning, because I think back on that day a lot.
And you remember it, it's really clear, it stands out.
So I think being aware of what you say to people, and when you say it, I think it can have a really telling impact on their journey and their self-belief and their self-esteem. I didn't know when he said it, I don't know, I couldn't visualize exactly what I was going to be or do or say. And I certainly haven't, stood in front of several hundred employees at my 15-year company anniversary yet, but, the sentiment was there, and it definitely helps to light the fire.
Yeah.
And so then that brings me on. It was actually that building for whom I was working for in Soho, where I met the chance meeting of meeting a chap called Richard, who was the managing agent of the building. And I think we were in the lift together, and he apologised. There's no toilet roll in the building, and I was like, "It's all good. Don't worry about that." And then I said, "Do you know what? Actually, my mate Dave's got a company, one-man band down in Southampton, and he supplies toilet roll. Give him a shout."
Yeah,
and he did. And Dave, great business development, he's a great people person, and him and Richard did business shortly thereafter.
That's right, into business.
And then Richard had a portfolio of other buildings in London, and was rolled it out.
Yeah.
To Dave, and Dave was like, "Mate, that's amazing. Cheers for that. Yeah. Do you want to do that full time?" And so that was kind of in the summer of 2009. And Dave was just a one-man band. He was a professional footballer as well. So not as well. He was a professional footballer, played for Saints, and then went into the conference, made a really good living for his 20s. But again, he never wanted to go full time. Yeah. So he was he needed to fill his time with something else, and he had a shed in his parents' back garden full of toilet rolls. Yeah, yeah. And he had a couple of contracts, just easy, kind of just fulfilling that in his spare time. And then I made him quite busy with this connection I made for
like working for him, or just as a friend connection.
Oh, just a friend. He was like, "Do you want commission, or how do you want to get paid?" And I was like, "Mate, just whatever. It comes out in the wash." And then we kept in touch, and I was like, "I think I'm going to do this full time." And this was in the summer of 2009. So I started doing loads of research. Started going to the British Library and learning about business, reading books. I met with a former Dragon's Den panelist called Rachel Elnor, and I said, "I think I'm going to join my mate, and I think I'm going to start a janitorial supplies business with him, or I'm going to join his business." So at the time, it was just Dave. It was just a part-time business for him. And we talked about how I'd do it, and she said, "Well, how are you going to be different?" And I was like, "I'm not. I'm just going to do what they're doing." Yeah. And started putting up loads of websites for the existing janitorial supplies company. Was, as you can imagine, were beige. I mean, mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006, websites were not bright. They were not transparent. They were not sexy. They were not, I
think a lot of them still today are like that, to be honest, especially in the janitorial cleaning space. I think they are.
And she said to me, "Be the opposite. Yeah. Be different. Like, call yourself Bog and Roll or Dave and Ollie. Call yourself something different. Like, be colourful, be brash, be out there. Otherwise, you're never going to stand out." I was like, "Cool, that sounds good." So then I got another mate who was in doing graphic design at St Martin's, and I said, "Any chance you can do our branding as part of your project, as your coursework?" And so he did that. That was fun. And then it came to the crunch, really. I was living in my mate's bedroom in Canary Wharf, and I said to my current employees, I said, I'm I want to go on my own, give it a crack. So met Dave in Sainsbury's, up on the A2 next to the O2, and he said, "Well, I can't pay you. I've got no money.
Yeah. But
if you can develop enough business to bring in enough money to pay you in 6 months, I'll give you half the business." So I was like, "Deal, fine." So I went back to my little bedroom and just pulled up my computer and just cold called everything within a 15-mile radius of where his unit was, or his shed. It was by that time it was a 20-foot shipping container. And so I just cold called. I had no idea what I was selling or how to sell it or how to sell. So I was selling on price, which happens to be good timing. There's a little bit of luck and a bit of kind of serendipity there, if you like, because it was just after the crash, wasn't it? Financial crash 2009, people were buying on price. People were looking to save money. So with me on the phone saying,
I could save you a few pounds and pence.
I mean, embarrassing way to sell now, but at the time I had no idea what else to say. No website, no branding, no nothing. Just
everyone early days is like that, though, aren't they?
Exactly.
Really,
I think you do.
I can remember when we started. What separated us from Joe Blogs down the road? Price, predominantly, because we didn't have the infrastructure. We didn't have a unit like we're sitting in now. We didn't have the vans, etc. It was just me, my brother, and Dad just going around in a van. So you've got that luxury, haven't you? And if you're working from your friend's shed in his back garden or a shipping container, you haven't got them overheads, so you can afford that, right?
Yeah, totally. And we were naive and very keen as well. So you're kind of driven by just, wow, someone wants to do business with us, and you're so excited by that you deliver a gold standard service just because you want to just impress upon them that you're grateful for them buying from you. And we realised that we'd set quite a high bar of customer service, just because we were just keen as mustard and really naive.
It's a good way to start, though.
A really good way to start, And so that's something which I think is ingrained in the DNA of the business now, is that kind of, if we can deliver like a white glove experience where you're like, we really care about you, and if you want us to go the extra mile, then just say, because we're going to do it. Difficult as you scale,
of course.
But I think everyone sees Dave and I working hard and pretty committed, and I think that does rub off and creates a culture. So yeah, to cut a long story short, just did the 6 months. That worked out really well. So there was enough money in it, and I was driving out to Hampshire from East London every day at like 4 a.m. to beat the traffic, load a van, drive back to East London kind of mid-morning, smash the phone in the afternoon, rinse and repeat. Getting myself into debt. Didn't have any cash, didn't have any savings, was just like buying all my groceries on credit card, and just doing it all wrong basically. But I just believed in what we're doing.
You hit that 50%, you hit the target, and you were bought in 50-50?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I moved out to Hampshire, to Fleet, where I am now, which is 10 minutes from the unit. My wife Anthea was commuting to London still for her job in the city, wow. So it's perfect. Really, it's 40 minutes, one stop. So it ticked a big box there. It was feasible to do that. And then with that base, a bit more, those foundations laid, we could really kind of crack on a bit and start building a brand, start building processes, and a customer base.
Yep. So that was that particular moment. That's where Source was born.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Source had been born in 2005 with Dave just kind of plodding as a one-man band, just kind of a lifestyle business.
That's when you two got together.
2010, that's when it started kind of in earnest, if you like. Yeah.
So for those of you that obviously I see your stuff and we've spoken on several occasions, for those of the viewing that don't know what Source is, tell us what Source does.
Yeah, so we're the delivery arm for a lot of commercial cleaning companies and facility management companies. So we have a warehouse full of janitorial supplies, toilet rolls, cleaning chemicals, textiles, etc., and a fleet of vans. The company will order to us, we'll pick and pack it, and we'll ship it to the destination, which is their client site. Yep. And so their client site, could be anywhere in the UK, but generally is kind of southeast, Midlands, really. And we're doing that legwork for them. Yep. So we're kind of their third party, or we're their partner in delivery. And so one customer, a big contract cleaner, might have 200 client sites, and so we're just buzzing around doing replenishing their consumables. Yeah. all their materials which they're using to clean the property with. So that's the bulk of our business. But then we do have kind of what we call an end user, say a college or a school or just a business that's buying direct from us, rather than us being a kind of
intermediate.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. So and that's a big part of our business as well, really. But yeah, essentially we're just moving products made to be as efficiently and as fast as possible, really.
So you and Dave have now got sourced to a nice size, well-known supplier, one we've seen plenty of your content on social media. So what was that journey like in scale it from, when you two got together to sort of scaling to the size you are now? Was that an interesting journey?
Oh, it's been really fun, honestly, Chris. It's been so fun. And me and Dave get on really well. So first of all, the reason why that works is because we have a dovetailing set of skills. So he's operationally genius, financially incredible, and then I'm the other side of I'm on the marketing side of things and kind of, I don't know really what I do. I need to probably figure out my definition.
I have that all the time, don't worry. Yeah. But everything else that Dave does.
Yeah, what he doesn't do, I'll pick up the slack. And so there's a very complementary, set of skills there, which I think is the secret sauce.
Definitely. Did you know that from the outset when you sort of working together that there was that you both had opposing skills that would make you a complete package?
It was clear very quickly.
Good.
It was clear very quickly, and still to this day, like I had to fill a statement of means in just for our bank yesterday, and I was like, Dave, can you fill this in for me? Yeah. It was all my stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas that there is. It's give and take. Like there's parts of the business which he doesn't want to touch and can't touch, or doesn't have any interest in touching, and that's my bag, really.
I think for me that's key to anyone that's looking to start a business, whether that's in the cleaning industry, janitorials or any industry, about your business partner and making sure your skill sets are different, because you get people starting businesses with their friends, etc., which is okay. If you've got the skill sets and they're synergistic and one's strong in one area, one's the other. Because if you're both doing the same thing and there's that crossover, it doesn't really work. And I think we've had it where just understanding who's doing what and whose skill set is where will only help in terms of scaling. It's definitely something that keep aware of for me, because it gives lots of benefits, as I say. And then stuff you can't do, your business partner can, and vice versa.
And if it's not a business partner, then it's just a matter of delegating someone you trust. And I think, it would scare the life out of me to feel like I was in business on my own. And not, because I know my weaknesses. And I think a sign of maturity over the course of running a business for 13 years is be honest about your weaknesses and address them and find a way to get those seen to. Focus on what you're good at. And that's where it comes into our business. Like, I think we've got a really core group of people that, neither of us are afraid to admit are much better at doing it than we are. That's the key. It doesn't have to be, people might be looking to start a business and they feel like they need a business partner who is doing all the stuff that they can't do particularly well. I mean, that's the holy grail if you can, because you both got skin in the game and it's going to be really a good synergy. But, next best thing is just to make sure that, if you are the only business owner, you recognise that there's a few holes in your ability and plug them with people that are essentially a lot better than you. That's their thing.
That's
their
the key,
bang.
isn't it? Yeah. Getting people that are better than you at certain tasks, so they can do it, better than you would be able to, and not. Some business owners think they know everything. It's very difficult to wear all them hats, keep all them spates clean. Eventually, one will fall. Because I've done that in the early days, thinking, I know everything. I can do that, I can do the accounts, I can do the marketing. And something's always given. You just can't give your attention to everything, can you? So, entrepreneurship, you're at Source, you and Dave. Has that been a smooth journey? What have been some of the ups and downs? Tell me you're the lowest of the low points that you've had with Source.
I'd say, so we always had economies of scale in mind. Of what we do, it doesn't really work. It's really low margin. As soon as you start, your costs are always getting higher with growth. So it's a double-edged sword. You get a new contract in or a new chunk of business, and you have to pay for that stock up front. Or you have to pay for it before you get paid. And then you need more infrastructure, you need more vehicles, you need more people. And so you never really see the money because you're always on a trajectory if you're growing. And as much as you're turning over more money, your costs are increasing. And that can be a little bit, I think I was pretty despondent because I thought if we get to this number, I'll see this amount of return, but you never really do. And so it was kind of like, where are we going? And David would say to me, right, if we get to 50 grand a month, we get to 100 grand a month, this time next year, Rodney, it was one of them all the time. And I had this little bit of paper on the back of my door, and we had just written in kind of marker pen, like 50 grand per month is this. And then we had 100, and 150, and we had 200 grand. It was just all the different kind of markers to aim for. And it's almost like when we get there, we've
made it.
Yeah, totally. And very quickly got to £1 million pound turnover, like within a year, I think it was. And then we grew for 10 years on the trot by £500,000 every year.
Well done.
And that was just through organic, just doing things well and being consistent. And making quite a lot of cold calls in the early days and building relationships.
Was that your route to market, cold calling?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't do any paid marketing, didn't do any AdWords or anything like that. It was all just picking up the telephone, having a conversation, just trying to get to the decision maker, and building a relationship, bit of trust, and let the rest of the team kind of build on that, through their delivery touch points and invoicing and administration. It was kind of me that would open it and then hand it over, and they would do a great job.
So you'll personally do all your cold calling?
Yeah, all the cold calls. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, maybe a bit old school, but that's one of my bugbears is people of a younger generation, not all of them, but defaulting to a digital means of contact.
Social selling, emails, or
if you say something, can you give that guy a call and just let him know, and then you realise that was interpreted as just contact them any way you see fit, and they've emailed them, and I think there's a totally different outcome. There's an opportunity to build a relationship as soon as you hit the phone, whereas on an email, I'm just like, I think that's a formality which should back up the first choice of comms, which is a phone call. And so that's what I did, really, just cold calling every day, and I really got a bit of a buzz off it. Again, a bit like with video editing, I was a bit of a kind of student. I'd read books and things like Richard Denny, Selling to Win, and you'd try all those techniques. It's amazing just reading a book and then trying it the next day, and like, wow, that actually works. Yeah, it's really exciting. And then so we just kept growing. And then to answer your question, though, the kind of,
because I think we're always going to ask these guests this particular question. Entrepreneurship is a great journey. It's really interesting. You get to meet some fantastic people, and there are some real high points. I think with the pressures of social media, we don't necessarily say, well, actually, there is another side of this, and we're going to talk about work-life balance as well, which is another area which can have its ebbs and flows. But yeah, what's been a particular? I mean, the common one we're having is obviously COVID.
No, I'd say there's two things. Until COVID, there was times that money was really tight.
Cash flow.
Cash flow. And Dave's doing an amazing job juggling those books and kind of keeping us going.
I suppose because janitorial supplies, I suppose, like a cleaning business, predominantly you've got that high labour percentage, haven't you? But you've also got stock on top of that you've got to hold in your warehouse that a cleaning company maybe doesn't have. And then you've got your overheads of your deliveries, so your vans, your unit that you've got to keep everything in. So I imagine it's
heavy.
I can imagine.
And the costs can easily spiral out of control.
Yeah.
And then that's your net profit gone just because you've made a mistake on a delivery. And without we are not perfect. We do our best.
Yeah, of course.
But, we do leak a fair bit of profit just from human error. And that is just law of averages. You can't take that away. You can't eliminate that at all. We have upgraded to some, automation and software to help with that. But one of the things which to answer your question, so the money, it has been tight, but I'd say the main thing I'd look back on as the lowest point was a culture thing. Like we got too big.
Okay.
I think in hindsight, before COVID, I think we were possibly on the brink of overtrading.
Right.
You know, people wanted to give us more sites. What do you do in a contract cleaner? You've got 100 sites with, says, I'm going to give another 30.
Yeah.
You have to then reinvest in your infrastructure to be able to deliver that extra 30. So it's a poison chalice. And what happened was we ended up getting up to like 35 staff. And for us, I think that was way above and beyond the sweet spot. And there became pockets of employees. Law of averages, you put 35 people in a room.
Some are going to get on, some not, right?
And some are going to be good eggs, some are going to be bad eggs.
Definitely.
And I feel like what we built at this kind of really friendly, matey, almost like family-like atmosphere just became a little bit toxic.
Okay.
And changing a culture is scary, it's difficult. And I didn't know how I was going to do it.
How did you do it? This is funny you say that. I think you're a little bit ahead of me in terms of how long you've been in business, and we've been 8 years now. And I think that's something that we need to change. Culture, I think it's quite a big thing, and people overlook it quite easily. But if you've got a solid culture and your core values, and everyone is pulling in the direction of those core values, it forms in your training, your staff induction, and like you say, having that good, company culture is key. It's a big thing you see on social now. People, leave because of poor culture. So how did you rectify that?
Well, it's not perfect at the moment, but it's a work in progress. And I think even just recognising it is healthy.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Even small changes, and I speak to some of our team, and even the smallest things that I could have done would have made a big difference to them. Like,
give me an example.
Just appreciating their work.
Okay. Yeah.
Recognising, saying thank you, or just giving them the approval that takes seconds. But there's also where we got to. COVID came at the right time.
Okay, that's interesting.
It did, because it enabled us to reevaluate who we wanted in the business. Some people's journey with us came to a natural end because it was pre-furlough, and so we didn't know that was coming down the line. So we're like, well, we need to
make some decisions, tough decisions, right?
And it was one of those conversations where there was a handful of people who we knew were not particularly healthy to have around the business, where we just thought this is a good opportunity to invest in our team that we want to stay, by giving them the financial incentive to go.
Yeah.
And so then they were then out of the business. And we became, over COVID, a really tight family, because we were a bit like yourself, a key worker essentially.
Yeah.
We had to go to the office, we had to deliver to the police force, we had to deliver to nursing homes, we had to deliver to all sorts of places. So we were there front and center 7 days a week in our warehouse, and it was crazy. Like, it was like a trading floor. We were like trying to buy alcohol gel from Turkey. We were trying to buy, PPE from places. We were doing, but everyone in that team kind of gelled to a point where I think there's a bond there that is timeless.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a lot of, we were the same. We were quite lucky. People think, oh, you must have, it must have been manic through COVID. It was, but a lot of our stuff is commercial work. So if no one's going in the office, they don't need an office cleaned. But we were quite fortunate. We worked with a large care home provider, so that kept us going. But again, it just goes back to the recognition that of what we actually, companies did, especially cleaning, janitorial companies, did through COVID. And it was a good time to, obviously like you guys at Source have, to take a step back, reset and go, right, actually, this is amalgamated in a really tight team now, and you've took that team moving forward, and then you can you've cut out the bad eggs, if you want to call them that, and you're going to get them moving in every business. But then you've developed and you've kept that culture going, which I think is the key part.
I think there's a few takeaways from it, really, in that there's a sweet spot for every business, a certain size, and bigger isn't better. Like I didn't know where it was going to stop if COVID didn't come along, because we'd have been keep going and going and going. I think it would have been. I don't think it would have been a better business today had it not been for the opportunity to reset.
I was on a podcast with James Sinclair, a well-renowned entrepreneur, and he said to me, what's your goal for the business? And I said, oh, well, I just want to grow it. And he's sort of like, okay, well, why? And I didn't really have an answer, if I'm honest. It's just something that happens in the background. It keeps growing. But I think that's a pragmatic and sensible approach that you've taken to say, actually, we're going to keep growing. We're going to have more and more staff. It's not as controllable. So that then subsidize, that we're possibly risking service levels just to keep going, but then you damage your reputation, and it's just you end up coming backwards, don't you? So it's good to accept that actually maybe this is our sweet spot, and this is where we operate best.
I totally agree. I think if you can catch yourself and always ask yourself, is this going to devalue my product?
Yeah.
Is this growth going to be harmful for culture, for the other customers that have been loyal to us all the way? Do they deserve a lesser level of performance? Are this team going to be stressed? Is the warehouse going to be big enough?
Yeah.
Are we just putting more components under pressure for what? And so that kind of analysis is only really afforded to you if you have kind of just some sort of penny dropping moment where you just realise actually what are we growing for, just like you said.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that question, so the way we would do it is we'd rather say, well, this is our level, we turn over X amount, and that we want to be the best supplier of that size in the industry.
Yeah.
And there you can then work around that what that looks like in terms of turnover, staff. You can start trying to save money in places. You can start trying to buy better.
Yeah.
You can then focus on the people a bit more. If you're always growing, you're always adding more complications into the mix, and you never really have a chance to step away, look in on the business from the outside, because you're always in it doing stuff.
Yeah, you're always firefighting, aren't you, or growing, or wondering, training that person, or new materials, or new vans, etc. So you don't get that bird's eye view of it, do you?
I learned that from a long time ago when I used to be part of this kind of sales and marketing thing called the Entrepreneurial Circle, and he would always ask me, are you working on the business or are you working in the business? Yep. And I think that's again goes back to Dave and I, in that there's a bit of a marriage there, whereas I'll be on it and Dave's in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good kind of balance to get.
Yeah. So we spoke about some tough times, which comes within every business. What's been the pivotal moment that you look back on and think, wow, I'm really proud of what we've achieved there? And then say that can be a long-term vision that you've got to where you are today, or is it a specific moment in time that you can recall and go, I'm going to remember that for the rest of my business career?
I'd probably say getting to the £1 million turnover, because we won Toast of Surrey, which is the business awards.
Yeah. Best
business up to £1 million turnover, and the feeling of imposter syndrome was off the scale. We were in a room in our dicky bows and everything, and we couldn't believe it. We were drinking champagne from the bottle in the front row. We were just, they were thinking, "Here's that sauce lot," and we couldn't believe it. Wow, we've been given a business award by business people who came to our unit. They had to step through potholes and in a derelict shed where there's a pig running around. They were like, "What have we come to?" Yeah. But they gave us the win, and that's when Dave and I thought, "Wow, we're faking it till we're making it." Yeah. But maybe actually we're onto something. And I look back, there's a relatively kind of romantic kind of memory attached to that, because it's just such an innocent time, and we got there quite quickly. I never thought we would. And so I remember just the absolute happiness of getting that award was so satisfying.
When you got to £1 million in revenue, we're a 7-figure business now. How quickly, I thought, we've covered this before, I thought, right, when I get to here, you said about, you had the sticker on the door saying, right, if we do 100K, 50K a month in revenue, we've made it. I felt the same. And when we got a contract that took us over that million, the next day it was, business as usual.
We have a business partner, and he was one of our customers, and he said to us, he's like, lads, just stop what you're doing and recognise when you hit that milestone. Because he would come in the office and see the stuff, and he'd be like, when you get there, stop, go for a drink, whatever, how you want to celebrate, just recognise it. Yeah. And it's really good advice, because it was business as usual the next day. Yeah. And we were back there, and the little trophies on the side, and you go again. And
just got a sore head.
I think you need to stop and recognise your achievements for what they are. that's a really good healthy thing to do, because without that you're just coasting, or you're on to the next thing and you don't really enjoy them. So there's been a few of those along the way. Like we ended up picking up some more awards, and but never felt as good as the first one.
Yeah.
It was like we arrived really. And then more recently, stuff we did over COVID was quite wholesome. The amount of product we ended up getting through Dave's wheeling and dealing, which ended up going to some really critical places. And then rebranding recently was probably quite another kind of a key moment in the business, really. I think recognizing the need to evolve.
You've grown.
And that's quite, that's a lot of change there. There's a lot of push pull kind of going on in that scenario with people in the business, and by and large, it was a pretty seamless process. It could have been kind of a bit of a butting of heads there, but people trusted me and Dave and went with it, and repositioning ourselves as a more sustainable company, and actually following that up with much more conscious buying decisions, operating decisions. We're walking the walk, but that was a bit of a shift. Yeah, it needed quite a long transition period and a lot of planning. But I think we just recognised that there was a demand for it. I feel like our brand was getting a little bit tired. It could do with a refresh, and I feel like it was the perfect time just to evolve and take the source to the next stage of its life.
So how me and Ollie met, and the reason he's predominantly on here is on social. We try and put out a lot of content, and I would say Ollie is one of those people in the professional cleaning janitorial space that does content well, and caught my eye. So that's while he's here. Yeah, it's few and far between in our industry for people to do well. So what got you into your content journey? What made you want to start that particular piece?
Yeah, so it was COVID really. I've always been interested in media and video and photography, and I think I saw an opportunity to combine work with a hobby.
Yeah,
and
I would say I'm exactly the same.
It was a good way to kind of think to maybe I'd been in the business quite a long time, and I was looking around for the next kind of thing to strike a fire within me. And in hindsight, maybe I was getting a little bit stale, and I needed to bring a different dimension to my role. And so I thought, well, I think someone said to me, and it really rang a bell. It was years ago, we were in a tell me economy. Yeah. It was go and meet someone, tell them about something, walk away, and they've been told. Now we're in a show me economy. People want to see it and move on, and they see it through their phones or whatever it is now. And so therein was the idea of video. Show them what we've got. And so kind of when we had the products in COVID, a lot of them were based around the electrostatic sprayers, which are those green sprayers. Sure, yeah. And with that came some guidance on how to use them. And I didn't really know what I was talking about, to be honest, but I just thought there's some potential here to show people how to use them without having to do it every single time. So it was all about building a library, so I didn't have to keep repeating myself. So we'd sell these products everywhere, and then we'd get a phone call going, yeah, how do I do that? And I'd be like, well, do you want to FaceTime me, or should I just tell you?
I suppose you couldn't do that face-to-face, training either.
So I just thought, well, if I do a video on it, I'd be like, it's going to be so much more efficient. And so I ended up just putting it on YouTube, and, something as innocuous as like how to fill a tank. Yeah. Was like getting 60, 70,000 views, because what you assume everyone else knows, or they just need a bit of a guide or a bit of reassurance. They'll just go on YouTube and they'll search it because they want to use this product and spray and keep everyone healthy and, reduce cross-infection. But, there seemed to be an appetite for it. And so I just taught myself. I started on my phone with just like a little stand, no mic, no lighting, no nothing. And then a bit like I mentioned earlier, there was a student in me that was ready to be taught, and I was a sponge, and I'd be on YouTube. Oh, wow. Okay. I need to buy these lights. I need to, I need to get this camera. I need to get this mic. And, I feel like my production value needed to be improved to get more views, but that wasn't the case because people were still viewing stuff which was filmed on a phone and with no mic and with bad lighting.
I think it goes back to, you get started with anything, as long as your content's relevant and it's relatable to people, people will watch.
Totally. And I'd had no structure really. I just knew that what the objective of the video was. I need to tell people how to do this.
Yeah.
And that was really the kind of the main structure of any video was like, how many times can I make a video about this one product? And then I'll just inquire with the team about the questions they had coming in, and that would then provide the content. If I had the same question a few times about how long does battery last, that's a video.
Yeah. And
so then I started building up this content and gradually becoming more and more proficient at the editing. I still do, just spend my spare time watching YouTube videos on how to edit and how to shoot, and just kind of about content. And then I realised that, I'd found a little niche. I'd found a fresh passion within the business that kind of gave me another kind of head of steam to kind of be in and around the business in a different capacity.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it had value for our customers and beyond. I mean, a lot of the stuff I do is not seen by my customers. The wider audience don't even buy anything from us, but it helps get me known to other people, which then in itself presents more opportunities. So it goes back around to what I said earlier in the conversation about you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
And that is now transferred into video because there's people that have contacted me through getting to know me and the business through the video. I think that's almost in their minds a pre-qualification. So a lot of the work's done already by the time they meet you.
You've already done, even though you've never spoke, you've already developed that relationship.
Exactly. It's an evolution of actually our website. From the early days, I said, let's be transparent. Let's put me and you, as me and Dave, on the side of the vans, on the website, not because we want to get famous. We just want to give trust and full transparency to the people before they do business with us. So if we can do a lot of that legwork first, a lot of that relationship building, when it comes to closing, it's going to be a shorter cycle.
Yeah.
And I think that's evolved into video now, and I think still that bears fruit.
Has it brought you? Because I've mentioned on the show before, it's done wonders for me as a personal brand and getting me known within the industry. Has it brought a direct ROI? Sure, we've had leads from our videos. I wouldn't say it's paid for its entirety yet, but do you find it brings you new business? Is that a good revenue stream for you? It brings people in the door?
Yeah, it has. Good. Definitely. There's no two ways about it. I mean, I won't give too much away, but there is, if you're looking for a direct metric, like I spent this on this video and I need to see that back through inbound calls, then you're going to do.
It's not quantifiable, is it?
What you said earlier, it's building a trust, it's building a brand, it's building familiarity with you and your company. But there's a pretty significant chunk of our turnover which I can attribute to people coming to us through video. And it might not be an instant, I've seen your video, can we do business?
Yeah.
It's more a case of they might want to do a supplier relationship with us, and then in turn that leads to a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Or it might be access to a product which is again a very positive move, or it might just be good old fashioned business where they've come to us and said, I really like what you do, let's talk, can you supply us? But that probably is the third in the line in the queue really of how it works. I think it's not for everyone, and you've got to understand what you want out of it. And if your expectations are for a clear and obvious return on investment on the bottom line as a direct result of this video or this playlist of videos, then in our industry, I feel like you've really got to have some mega content.
Yeah.
I've got some ideas on and seen people in the States who have got some incredible content, mainly around before and after. So it's the work you do is incredible in terms of it's people love before and after stuff. That is huge. The potential there in the cleaning industry, it's huge,
yeah,
and it's untapped in this country. You know, there's people out in the States on YouTube. There's a guy I follow who's got 700,000 subscribers, and all he does is clear people's driveways with a pressure washer and you know, he's on 1 million views.
Yeah.
You know, so that's extremely lucrative. So the cat's out of the bag. Don't go and do it.
I think, you know, I think the industry is missing a trick, because I don't know if that's because our industry leads, shall we say, or people that have been in the industry a long time, they've never really known that, and there's sort of that generational shift going on. But I still think there are certain companies that do it well. Obviously, you do it fantastically as well, but there's still such a market out there. I think, you know, cleaning companies think putting a stock image from Canva, you know, of someone, you know, cleaning a desk or whatever, counts as good social media. And if, you know, you look at some of the well-established content creators in all fields, you know, they're out there. I say the States are well ahead of us at that, but there's definitely plenty of money left on the table.
Huge. And if I look at some of the metrics that from the posts I do, it's the visual stuff and the people stuff. Like if we show the team, or it's in and around our warehouse, or people are just nosy. Yeah. And
like flying drones through your warehouse.
Yeah,
I told Adam he needs to up his drone
that wasn't me.
skills.
That wasn't me. That was James. Big plug for James Ariel. He did an amazing job. But that one gets loads of views because people are curious. People like to see inside, behind the scenes. And I'm cool with that. I think that's great. You're building a relationship, that familiarity, which I feel is just a rubber stamp on what you do. But there's, you know, the content out there and the cleaning. If you think about cleaning, you're taking something from a bad state into a good state. And that transition is fascinating for people. There's an appetite online. You know, YouTube really rewards that content, you know, because people love it. You know, sometimes you can't wait and you scrub to the end to see the afters, you know what I mean? And, you know, we're an industry which is absolutely crying out to be documented by video.
I'd agree.
And it's so powerful.
Yeah. So it's obviously done wonders for your business in terms of, you know, getting relationships in, which is what it's there for eventually. But I think people want to see a direct result straight away, don't they? And it's definitely not like that. But.
Totally, you know, and I'm not even. For me, I'm dissatisfied with my output. You know, my content. You know, I feel like I haven't got enough out there. I feel like I've, you know, left so many videos unedited and unshot. You know, I've got so many things I'd love to see and do and shoot. You know, and hopefully, you know, I can rejig my time in order to produce what I want to do. You know, the potential is unreal, and hopefully other people in the business are also investing in it and seeing in the potential, because it's a good opportunity. Yeah.
So you've got Source, which obviously is doing fantastic. You're putting out your content. You're a busy guy, obviously, like most entrepreneurs. So let's talk a little bit about work-life balance. So my view on work-life balance is probably classed as toxic masculinity, in terms of, I think to achieve well in your industry, work-life balance is near on impossible, in my eyes. That's just my personal opinion. Shoot me down if you want. You know, if you want to grow to, you know, mid 7-figure business, you've got to put the hours in. And sometimes, you know, getting that work-life balance is nigh on impossible for me personally. Is it a case of I need to structure better? Maybe, that's debatable. But I think I'm still in the infancy of our business and pushing it. So that takes priority over other stuff. And I've mentioned on some of our content before, you know, trying to, even down to like the gym, just making time to get into the gym. Sometimes it just doesn't happen and that falls by the wayside because I've got a tender to get back or whatever it may be. It's important, of course. And maybe where you are within your business career, you've now got your sweet spot with Source and you've learned all, because I say you're a little bit ahead of the game in terms of where we are. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your approach to work-life balance, what your views are on it and how you find it, if indeed you do.
Well, first of all, it's an ongoing challenge, but being aware of it now, I think is the main critical aspect of work-life balance. I think where you are right now and people that are still striving to get to a certain place, there's no substitute for the graft, putting the time in, you know, and you can't necessarily do some of the things you want to do because you're on a mission. Yeah. And I would never want to clip the wings of someone who is on that journey. That momentum takes a lot of kind of spirit to kind of muster, and it'd be crime to kind of say, well, step back a little bit, because when you're on that journey, you're enjoying what you do, and if you're enjoying it, it's good for you, surely. But I think when you have different kind of components in your life, like your kids, or your marriage, or your friends, or your family, whatever, there comes a point where you do say, well, what's the cost?
Yeah, I get that.
And there could be moments in time where you're like, well, I've probably misordered the priority here, because you've got a load of glass balls you're juggling, and when one smashes, it's time to evaluate, well, why did it smash? Because I had that ball in the air when it doesn't even deserve to be kind of in the juggling set. It's just, it's in there for whatever reason. So I think when you got your own thing going, it's difficult to step back, as I mentioned earlier, and recognize the signs where you'd probably be better at what you did if you did go to the gym that day. For me, exercise should be and has to be a non-negotiable. Yeah. Because I get my family get the best version of me, I get the best version of myself, and the business does as well. If I don't exercise, I feel like I feel a much,
you're getting an inferior product out of yourself.
Totally.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And there's no adrenaline, there's no cortisone going through my veins, there's no there's no freshness coming from me, and I feel like I need to prioritize that over everything, and then I can be productive, and I can be more balanced and more measured in what I do. And so you mentioned earlier about kind of a toxic kind of masculinity, and I've been helped with that recently. My mate Dan Stanley has written a book on it.
I've read his book,
and it's fascinating.
I was hoping to have him on the podcast.
Yeah,
we're going to eventually get down to Wales, because there's a few big cleaning entrepreneurs that I would like to get hold of down in Wales. So I'm hoping we will
speak to him. He's a great guy, and he's onto something, because I think there's a blueprint which I think we all follow, just because we're naturally led into traditional methods and ways of thinking.
Sure.
And I'm all for kind of just having a different opinion on something, or a different view on something. And I feel I've got 2 kids, 6 and 5, and that time's going really quickly. And so being at work at 8 o'clock in the morning or earlier, or jumping on my computer at home, does it really need to take precedent over being on the school run? Because they're not going to want me on the school run soon, and I'm essentially my own boss. I can do the school run. No one's saying got to be at work at 9. So why am I not taking the opportunity? So I just feel like there's definitely the ability for me to balance, but I don't always take that. And I'm always reassessing why I don't. It goes quite deep, actually, into much more complex territory of how we're wired. But I feel like if you want longevity, the balance is critical.
Have you ever got to a point where you've worked basically, you burnt out, you've worked to, have you got to that definitely. Point? I think I had that around a year ago.
Definitely. COVID was pretty intense, to be honest. I started having a beer in the evenings and a couple of glasses of wine, and it was like, this is not good. It would just be full tilt all day, and I wasn't exercising, and and then healthy body, healthy mind, an old saying is so true, and so I think I definitely reached a bit of a point there where I needed to kind of step back and read the signs. And hopefully now I'm aware of those. But before it gets too late again. And but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. I think it's a conversation which should always be had. I'm really pleased that mental health is becoming much more of a easy conversation to have. But it's a difficult one for anyone who's running their own business, because it's so easy to preach from your glass castle and say
when you've got down the line and you're there already.
So people might be listening to this and be like, I mean, easy for you to say.
I think them early days, you've got to have the investment. I mean, you've got to put a little bit of time in. But like you, I think there's a very fine balance between the two. Like I'll take my daughter to school most mornings, and I'll try and pick her up, and then I'll have them a couple of hours in the evening where I can spend some time with them, be present, and then I'll do some work in the evening. It's probably my wife that gets the least amount of time of me because spend time with the kids in the evening. I'll be sitting there on my laptop, and I'm. You're working away and you're there, but you're engrossed in what's going on. So it's something I need to improve on. Any tips?
I think definitely like having the ability to not work from home and seeing your kids, seeing you through their lens. Like if I was that high and I saw me walking around the house on my phone, all they see is the back of my phone, and that becomes normal to them. I don't want that to be normal. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like always, Daddy, can you help me with this? And I'm like, yeah, 2 secs.
Yeah, I've got to send this email.
Put it away, mate. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like and that is such a powerful message to your children because there's a lot of complex emotions going on there. The rejection, the idea of them not being the most important thing. At such key ages. Such developmental
they're like
stages
sponges at that age, aren't they?
And I think it's a massive responsibility on us as parents of young children to recognise that even the smallest actions we make can have a really big impact on them and a long-lasting impact as well. So I'm much more aware of that these days, and it's still work in progress. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's by no means reach kind of utopia with it, but being aware of it does make you more conscious of the decisions you're making and stops you in your tracks. Yeah. I was speaking to someone yesterday, so I had this thing in my mind where I work really hard at different times of the day, not normally kind of 9 till 5. So I'm a bit of an early bird. I like to ride in the mornings before everyone's up and before the working day commences. So I'm not kind of
you remember the 5 a.m. club?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, love it. But for a reason, so it's not encroaching on either family time or work time. Yeah. So I get it done in like a little secret time of the day where I can do it without having it on my conscience. Yeah. But someone said to me yesterday, why is it on your conscience anyway? You are hardworking. You put in more hours than anyone else. Why do you need to have a chimp on your shoulder just because you've gone for a ride at between 1 and 2 in the afternoon? Yeah. You graft. You're really, really hardworking, and I think it's just a conscious thing, isn't it? You just want to make sure that you're understood and your work ethic is never in question. Yeah. So yeah.
Leading by example. Again, it goes back to leading by example, doesn't it? You want to be, putting in the hours, but you've got to have that balance. And I think they could probably do a whole nother podcast about getting work-life balance because it is it's an individual and personal thing, isn't it? What you prioritise, but you have got to have a little bit of both. And when you need to get in the trenches, you can. Yeah. But when you're business as usual, when you're sailing through it and you're where you need to are and you're further down, you're 14 years into it, it is easier to. Well, I believe hopefully it's easier to have down the line. But like you say, you just got to take them little bits. Like I say, I will take my oldest daughter to school. She doesn't like getting the bus, so I'll take her to school in the morning and spend the time with her. It takes 20 minutes out of the day, and then I can travel to the office, here. So I do try and but there are times when, I probably could be better at that. And I think you gave a good example. 1 minute, I've just got to send this email. I'm probably guilty of that, to be honest. And hopefully that, that just comes with time and just reevaluating what's important. Because like you say, they grow up quick, don't you? I've got 3 children, 12, 8 and 3. And it just goes like that, and then the business will still be there in 10 years and, they'll be moved out or with their friends or whatever. Yeah.
And what we're doing it for? We're doing it for them, essentially.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we're doing it for ourselves, but ultimately want to build a life for them, which is fulfilling and rewarding, and and they feel loved and supported. And so, as well as us trying to support our businesses, we've got to try and take the same attitude and the same passion and commitment into the family kind of unit as well. So yeah, it's one of those where there's balance required, and when you're on an upward trajectory in business, it's great to keep that momentum going. But always be aware that there's usually a cost.
Yeah, I'd recommend Dan Stanley's book as well. Maybe we'll put a link down in the bio, and that's on Amazon. So so we covered a wide range of topics. What's next for Ollie and Sauce?
Definitely more video content. Yeah. I'm really trying to just rejig my diary and my week structure so I can actually produce better content with more value to our existing customers rather than just more of a kind of broad brush, seeing what sticks to a much wider audience. I want to bring more value to the people that spend money with us.
Yeah.
I think driving the business forward with strong sustainable values is key. You know, just feeding that machine and making that machine as green as possible.
You're doing some great work with that. See all your electric vehicles and push chemicals.
I think that's driven by the customer.
Yeah.
In fairness, and we reacted to the customer's needs. There was a bit of both. I kind of felt a bit of one of those gut feelings you do as a business owner. I think this is the direction we need to go, but at the same time, that was validated by just the sheer demand for customers or even their customers who are demanding the most ethical or sustainable option. And so there was a good point in time just to pivot the business. Really invest in the electric vehicles where it's feasible, which is in London mainly because it's
short stops.
Yeah, and they regen brake. They come back with 60, 70 miles still in the battery. They're brilliant. They work really, really well. Great cost saving measure as well because there's no congestion charge and the fuel and everything like that. So it was a no brainer in that, and we're going to add 2 more into London as well. So that'll be 7, maybe 8 vehicles in total. The solar panels are getting fitted onto our warehouse in the summer. Hopefully that will just kind of give another tick in the box. So I care about this planet. I feel like it's part of our responsibility to do things as best as you can. And not every business is suited to take those big steps. Yeah. Just practicality wise, or the choice of greener options isn't quite there yet. Which we struggled with for a long time.
I think for me, when we present the 2 options, it's interesting. Like it's the same with food as well. You go to get the healthy food. It's actually more expensive than buying the cheap rubbish, right? But the benefits of it. So I think a lot of customers are now dictating to us as a business. We want you to go along a more sustainable route. Whereas before we'd sort of present them with 2 options, and they'd go, "Well, which one's the cheapest?" And you go, "Well, your standard disinfectant or whatever it may be," and they'd go, "Well, we'll go with that option for now." I think that's definitely shifting, changing. Yeah, are you finding that?
Definitely. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations with companies who they might have a client who is environmentally conscious, and they've said, "Can you present all the options like you've just said?" And we've done that, and then cost has been the deciding factor. And unfortunately, all the research and the good work you've done is then just
goes out
the window, and then cost is the key driver. So I think now I think you're genuinely seeing more sustainable products are more affordable. Yeah. They're leveling off a little bit. Good. And I also think coupled that with just a slightly more committed attitude to a sustainable choice, is often winning over cost. Yeah. Because it's a less of a bitter pill to swallow. Really, it's not the cost difference isn't that as much as it used to be. Now. Yeah, and that's just economies of scale, and manufacturing and everything just is leveling off a bit in terms of sustainability. And there's trends as well. Products on the market like sachet, soaps and sachet cleaning products, and super concentrates. It's becoming, a ready-to-use trigger spray for me is like cardinal sin, in the industry now. And I feel like
hide all the ones.
Yeah. I feel like that's becoming soon. That'll become. I don't know if there is such a thing as being frowned upon, but that's just like, well, that's an easy win. There's an alternative ready to go. Yep. It's better priced. It's more sustainable. It's less single-use plastic. So what's stopping you? Yeah. Whereas before there'd always be a case of it's a bit greener, but it's going to hit me in the pocket.
I think everything within our industry seems to take a long. It's like a massive boat, isn't it? It just seems to take a long time to turn round. But I think I agree with you. I think it's getting there. More and more customers, you see it them dictating that within their tender process, and when you're going, meeting with procurement buyers, they want to see that you're sustainable in the products you're using and how it's getting to there, and even like supply chain. So like using yourself, how are you impacting your supply chain, you know, with deliveries, electric vehicles and things like that. So it's definitely moving. It's good to see that the trend's going that way.
I totally agree. I think if you don't address that and are not seen to be making an effort and a genuine effort, not a greenwashing effort, I think you'll get left behind eventually. I think it's a commitment everyone's got to make.
Yeah, big one, sustainability.
Yeah.
So we've covered a wide range of topics, and Ollie, thank you for coming along.
Pleasure.
Tell everyone where they can find you on your social and your websites for Source.
Yeah, so it's sourcesuppliers.co.uk, and then LinkedIn is me, Ollie Rastall, and then we're on YouTube at Source Supplies. So
yeah, make sure you guys check Ollie out. He's got some fantastic content in terms of eco products, and the content in general is very informative. So make sure you go and check that out. Thanks for checking in on this episode, guys. Ollie, I appreciate you making the journey down. It was a great conversation, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.